Hi everyone, and thank you for clicking on this video. I have something rather special to share with you today. It's a watch that is a holy grail for many Seiko dive watch collectors, and a model that is rarely seen in the sort of condition of this example. So after the 6217, which of course is the low beat first professional model of Seiko diver, this is the second professional model and the first dive watch anywhere in the world to feature a high beat movement. So without further ado, here we have a 6159 7000. So this is a watch that the watch shop that I work at purchased just recently from eBay, and it really is in outstanding condition. It's almost like a wormhole opened up from 1968 and this guy fell through. It's really in that sort of condition. So the case, as you can see, is largely untouched. It retains its original brushed finish on the top of the lugs there. The case sides may have been polished at some point, but it's still in really nice original condition. All the edges nice and sharp, of course. And as you can see, the dial, unmarked, nice crisp printing, aged loom, but no damage to the loom, and no black gunk on any of the markers or anything like that. It has, of course, a really nice bezel insert you can see here, and it's obviously the countdown bezel version, being the 7000 model rather than the 7001. In really nice condition, no marks or anything on it, almost new old stock, to be honest. And if you look closely there, you can see the movement ticking away, the 36,000 beat per hour movement. Nice smooth sweep on it there as well. The strap that it's fitted on here, it looks to be a W-jean waffle strap. If anybody hasn't tried these on their vintage Seiko divers, I highly recommend them. Great quality strap, great price point, very like the originals to look at. And let's face it, the originals of these guys, when you can find them, are really getting to be quite silly money. So you know, you may not want to trust them for everyday use as well. Plus, I mean, very rare and hard to find. So, talking a little bit more about the watch, I've seen lots of pictures of these, and obviously it's a watch that, as a Seiko dive collector, you know, I lost after, just like everyone else. But it's not really until you get to hold one of these and examine it up close that you really realize, you know, how far in advance this watch was to most other dive watches of the late 1950s. For example, if you consider, say, the specs of the Rolex Submariner of this era, you'll see what I mean. Now we're lucky enough to have this afternoon another watch to have a look at, which is this guy here, the Rolex 1680 Submariner. This is a red sub, very collectible Rolex watch, of course. But this gives you an idea of, you know, where Rolex was at in 1968. So we can see it features a hi-hat plexi there with the Cyclops bubble over the date window, of course. A 200 meter water resistance, and if you can see up close to the movement there, you can see it's ticking away at 21,600 beats per hour. So it's, you know, what would commonly be called a low beat movement, but that was kind of standard for its era. So then, of course, we compare that again to the 6159 here. You've got a hardlex crystal, of course, very tough and scratch resistant. The high accuracy of the 36,000 beat per hour movement with, of course, a quick set date mechanism. With the old 1680 sub here, you had to wind past the 12 hour or 12 o'clock marker repeatedly to get the date right if the watch had stopped. So if you think about it, those first two features, the hardlex crystal, a very scratch resistant crystal, and a quick set date, the Rolex Submariner doesn't catch up with those for another 20 years or so mid-80s for something like that on a subby. And of course, you know, even the modern Rolex Submariners, they tick at 28,800, but not a high beat movement, the 36,000 beat per hour movement. Now, of course, I'm not saying any of that to diminish the Rolex Submariner. It is a fantastic watch. It is an all-time collectible classic, of course, and a brilliant piece of watch engineering. But I think it really sort of highlights the sort of the extra lengths that Seiko, you know, went to at the time and still do today in their range, you know, representing an exceptional quality product compared to some of its competitors at a price point that's, you know, is not huge, obviously. Now, I mean, in collectible terms, let's put a Submariner aside there. In collectible terms, of course, I mean, these watches are much rarer, I guess, than the Submariners of their era. Opinions seem to differ, but it seems likely that these were in production for only 2 years, so from 68 through 69, and at an original retail price of around about 30,000 yen, or around a month's salary for an average Japanese office worker. It was a really expensive item for its day, and probably of limited appeal to the general public, given that it was really intended as a professional dive watch and not as a daily wearer. As with many dive watches of this era, these were working watches, so like the Rolex Submariner, and professional tools. So they were exposed to the rigors of extreme environments. Accidents, loss and general wear on these things mean that there are a lot fewer of these now than there would have been originally, so they're even rarer again. And it really makes it very exciting when a piece like this turns up in this sort of condition. I'll give you a good shot of the case back here as well, so you can see the details of the watch. So it's marked as 8.5, so 1968 production, 6159 7000. The other interesting thing, of course, about the 6159 in this form is that, in a way, it contributed to the further development of Seiko divers, ironically by failing. So in late 1968, Seiko received a letter from a professional diver from Kure City in Hiroshima Prefecture, pointing out that the Seiko dive watches, like this one of its era, tended to lose their crystals, the crystal glass out of the front of the case in saturation diving. And the same thing can be said of the 1680 Submariner as well, or the other 5513 and other dive watches that weren't saturation divers. The other thing was that the watches were prone to damage when they were knocked against things underwater, prone to bumps and scrapes and accidental breaking of crystals. So the Seiko engineers at the time took those criticisms on board, and they basically devoted the next 6 years or so to researching the next generation of professional diver from Seiko, and that was of course released in 1975, and that's the 61597010 reference tuner. Much heavier case, double the water resistance of course, and interestingly enough the first titanium dive watch made by any company in the world. So today Seiko doesn't really make an exact reproduction of this watch, unfortunately. I wish that they did. But you can see echoes of it in many of today's Seiko Prospex divers. So for example, released last year you had the SBEX001, which was a limited edition, which featured a high beat movement, 36,000 high beat movement, and a dial very reminiscent of the dial in this guy, so with gilt markers and everything as well. However, it was a much larger watch than this, of course made from titanium, so in a way referencing the tuner as well as this watch. So not really the same size or wearability as a piece like this. Probably the nearest watch in the range, and the watch that this really follows, or rather follows on really from this one in terms of its design, is of course the Marine Master 300, originally introduced in the year 2000 as part of the historic collection and as a reproduction of this watch, and then into the general model lineup with a non-gilt dial, the SBEX001 that everybody's SBDX001 that everybody's is familiar with. But the watch that really resembles the closest to this in the current Seiko range is another anniversary model from last year, and that is of course the SBDX012, which is this guy here. You can see the close family resemblance between these two. This is kind of grandpa and I guess his grandson. It has the gilt dial, very similar proportions, if we turn them side on, to the 6159 from all those years ago. You can see that the bulk of the case body on the SBDX012 matches the 6159. It's a little bit domed at the back of the case here, and a heavier bezel as well. And you can see that when you turn the watch in 3/4 view, how much deeper the dial is from the crystal down. Obviously both of these watches feature a monoblock case. When you look at the back there, you can see no case back like a traditional watch has. And that's obviously one less point for water to get in, which gives you the greater 300 meter water resistance as well. Finally, of course, you've got the bracelet on the SBDX012. Obviously an option not available on the 6159 in its time. It was on a rubber strap like this, so a handy upgrade. The sort of prices that the 6159s are going for now, it's the sort of watch you probably hesitate to wear as a daily wearer. So maybe the SBDX012 here is going to be more of an everyday watch if you wanted something that you could wear all the time. So there we are, the 6159 7000. What a great piece of Seiko history. And I'm really happy to have been able to show this to you today. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much.